what is SafeGuard Profiler? I talked a lot about the safety lifecycle and phases of the safety lifecycle. In reality, there are phases of a project, any project. In this case, we're talking about inputting in that project phases and milestones and so on, and gates. We're inputting safety, so everything that is respect with system safety. So what is SafeGuard Profiler? That's a software product, and it is a field-proven, IEC compliant, IEC with respect to IEC 61511 and 508 a little bit. Also, it is in there. IEC 61508 is the one that we're using to develop the formula that is in there for the calculation of the probability of failure on demand. So this is a software that is fit for purpose. So what is the purpose? Working in the safety field, functional safety field. And what is its scope? The scope would be the functional safety field. So it gives the high integrity and critical control system design engineers, operators and maintainers the information and power to, we will see later on, import HAZA data, conduct LOPA layer protection analysis, which is a methodology for SIL determination. We'll also have the possibility to do risk graph analysis. Contingency planning. I talked a little bit about contingency planning already. Safety implemented functions optimizations and SIL verification. So it's not only verifying that, but how can I optimize? So the tool will help me, the software tool will help me to construct on that verification. And it's going to allow me to think more about the scenario that I'm building or the safety implemented function that I'm building, instead of concentrating too much in the formula and the mathematics and so on. That once you understand what is going on, you can leave it in the background, and you know and you trust that it's working correctly, because this tool is complying with the IEC 61511. So we can concentrate on building and doing the engineering. And then we create the safety requirement specifications in the tool. So the SafeGuard Profiler allows us to put all that information in there, so that can be used later on. And including different types of reports that I was talking about. Reports specific for operations, for example. Reports for maintenance. Reports for management, for the functional safety management. This software, SafeGuard Profiler, was developed here in Canada by SIL Automation. It has been used successfully on onshore and offshore projects with respect to functional safety. This is a proven in use tool. SafeGuard Profiler is the tool that we use today in order to do our work here at ACM. When we go out also and do the layer protection analysis sessions, we use SafeGuard Profiler and all the new features that are in there today. For example, we use the bow tie. This is a very useful graphical interface that allows us to, again, think about what we're doing and leave the technique a little bit behind. So a unique tool, fit for purpose and proven in use, and it's in its ability to integrate all aspects of this safety lifecycle that we were talking about before, right? What are the SafeGuard Profiler features? So we have SIL determination. As we said before, we import the HAZOP information, and then we do SIL determination. We can do either risk graph, or we can do layer protection analysis. And we kind of can go inside. Safety layer metrics will help us to understand how the risk graph is working and how also a little bit the LOPA is working. We can customize risk graph. For example, we can create all these categories, additional categories for each company is different from the other one. Risk categories, for example, risk receptors, health and safety, economic, asset, reputation, and so on. So we can tailor-make this tool and make it specific for a facility, right? We work with tolerable frequency numbers. Those are numbers that are coming out of your risk metrics and out of your management, out of the owners of the companies, the stakeholders. So we can, how can we use those numbers and input those numbers inside the tool, would allow us to further do our work. And so now we're looking at the special features of the software. So it's an IEC compliant layer protection analysis, and that we use multiple causes per single consequence, and that's very specific to what we do, and we will go into that a lot more. So it allows us to import process hazard analysis data, input information from HAZOP. So there are other hazard analysis methodologies that you can use. And as long as you can get all that data and put it into a CSV formatted file, we can import that data. So random hazard data selection or random hazard analysis data selection in order to create those layer protection analysis scenarios, right? In order so that we can do SIL determination, safety integrity level determination. Another one worked with multiple scenarios for the same safety integrity level determination. As I mentioned before, kind of what if scenario. So what if I change my scenario in this way and that way? At the end, I will be able to find out what is the most credible scenario according to the information that I'm given. And the good thing is, by creating these scenarios, I don't have to delete anything. So I can have a follow-up, a history. I can refer to certain scenarios that contain certain features or modifiers that were not in the other scenarios. That's very good. What is the implication? What is the impact of these different conditionals that come inside your scenarios, right? So that's a very good thing from this point of view for this software. And then we go into what are the SafeGuard profiler features. SIL verification, so safety integrity level verification. So that's when we start modeling and calculating our probability of failure on demand. And as I mentioned before, also is according to IEC 61508 and IEC 61511. We have an onboard customizable failure rate database. That's a very neat feature from this software. It allows you to construct your own database, and as time goes along, you are able to include and make this data very specific to your facility, which is ideal. So you don't like to rely too much on generic data coming from different part of the world. So you will be able to bit by bit construct and fine-tune and all your reliability data from equipment that you're using. Now the equipment will have a history. You will be able to prove proven in use equipment that failed for that purpose, for that intended purpose, and then you have a way to follow in there a history, not to go back and buy products that were not what you thought they were because of the stresses on which they were put. So this tool allows you to keep records of that and to fine-tune them, so which is very good to have your onboard customizable failure rate database. Don't trust too much on generic ones, so use them of course, but pay attention. They belong to you now, and if you already have an installed valve, well, it's not anymore a generic valve. It is a valve that belongs to you with a specific brand and name. We also can do any architecture with respect to M out of N voting, so we'll get a little bit into what that means. 1 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 4. These are standard configurations, so there people use, and not so common ones, right? So we can have very complex one. 3 out of 24, for example. You can do a specific reaction with many temperatures in there. So you might have groups of those ones. So you might have 1 out of 2 of 3 out of 24, so on. So it gets a little bit complicated. If you keep it simple, it's very simple. And you can also create these what-if scenarios, right? Also for the safety implemented functions. What if instead of using this valve from this manufacturer, I use another manufacturer? So, right? So I don't have to delete it. I have all those choices in there. So I have all those scenarios. Then you might bring to someone that has a decision-making power to buy this or buy that, and allows you to have the optimal information in order to make a decision, right? Less uncertainty on the decision that you're going to take. So you can look at all those scenarios and pick the one that is more appropriate to your situation. And you can also have a history, right? Eventually in the future you might come back and say, well, this is not working very well with this safety implemented function. What about if we use what we thought in the past, and that scenario beta it is the one that we're going to use now. So it is already there. It's already built in there. You just have to make reference and just call it back. So the SafeGuard Profiler tool allows you to have that history and records of the work done in the past, and you don't have to redo it again. Then there are some other features inside the software for safety integrity level optimization. That means working also on those what-if scenarios and calculating those optimum test intervals and probabilities of failure on demand and failure rates and mean time to restoration, diagnostic coverage, right? So how do they affect the safety failure fraction? How can I improve my probability of failure on demand? And if I improve it, for example, with the partial struct testing, how do I use that benefit that I gained there? I can extend my proof test interval and so on. So the tool will really easily help you to do that type of analysis or modeling, right? So we also have the possibility to include a beta factor. So that is a common cause factor. How does that influence your redundancy of your equipment? So we can also optimize the redundancy level of components. Software, I will show you how to work with the software in such a way that the software by itself is going to find out what would be the best combination of a group of sensors, for example. What combination, meaning the architecture with respect to redundancy. Is it 1 out of 3 better than 2 out of 3? Or what about the 3 out of 3? So the tool is automatically calculating this for you in real time right away. So you don't have to stop and do external calculations. The tool is dynamically giving all those values, and that's what we call optimization of that safety implemented function elements, right? Then later on, continuing with the operations and maintenance, so we have to maintain that safety integrity level. So what happens with the equipment out of service? How do we can track it? We can report that. So in here, management of change processes. So we'll try to not delete anything, but have kind of a history of what's happening to that those pieces of equipment. And again, all those what-if scenarios, we can go back at any time and create a new scenario and a new variation that reflects reality at that moment. And you can keep it in there and make reference for the future. And then we have also features for reporting that I talked a little bit about it. We can issue reports in Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, or PDF. Safety integrity level determination and verification worksheets, tables, layer protection analysis, summary tables, name of the SIVs, what is this risk reduction, in a formatted column in there so that you can easily refer to that column. When is the proof test for that piece of equipment required, and so on. So that could be in a report. SIL recommendations and maintenance reports that could be output. As I said before, you can create reports for operations, for management, for maintenance, and so on. In general, it has all the features that any other software has. Security of data and revision control, right? Re-verification and MOC compatible. Even you should apply MOC to SafeGuard Profiler. All the changes that you're doing there, you can follow up in there with version numbers and who made the facilitation of that layer protection analysis, and so on. You can follow up with names. Large project capability with a Microsoft SQL database. Unlimited architecture for any reliability block diagram structure that you might have. Very easily done, and we will talk about that also later on, is about the SIF to SIF connections, how I can simplify those complex safety implemented functions with respect to our architecture. And of course, administration and user password protections. SafeGuard Profiler advantages, complies with functional safety standards, as I said before. It allows you to use the IEC 61511 as your good engineering practice. In some countries like Australia and in England, the IEC 61511 are part of their legislature. This software is already very good for them. It's already a compliant software. what better thing to use than this software in order to comply with your duties or your responsibilities with respect to society. Up to 50% savings compared to traditional methodologies. You probably have been using your own Excel spreadsheets, but once you have 800, then things are starting to get a little bit complicated. So this software is already, the structuring and the database maintenance is already being taken care of by the software. Uses some powerful safety integrity level programming programs to manage multiple projects. So whether you're doing 8 or 800, if you're doing an entire FPSO, well, this software, you don't have to start thinking about how you're going to structure all that information someplace. It is already done for you, right? So all those loops, all those interactions or connections between safety implemented functions and where are they used to reduce risk in a low scenario, for example, all that connections are already there. You don't have to worry about those ones. You don't have to start looking for which spreadsheet has the information and how it's connected to the other one. So we have a very easy to understand graphic displays. So now we have something called the bow tie. That's a graphic representation of information. It shows you when the SIL target are reached and which are the safeguards that are more important or the safeguards that are somehow weak, or how you should be able to tweak or change or modify according to adjust your scenarios, right? We can also, in addition to creating these scenarios, we can replicate loops, entire loops, like copy paste. What you can do is replicate a scenario and change a little bit. So if you have identical units, well, you can replicate all those loops and then change the tags and so on. So allows user to replicate any loop to save time and reduce the chance of data input errors, so you don't have to retype it again. Another advantages is create a single electronic safety integrity level data handover package. So one file, I give you the entire project, I give you the entire facility with respect to safeguarding, right? What is the user-friendly format for that file is XML. There's a flexibility like any other software for, you can use it as a standalone in your machine to do your work. You take your station with you and go to work to someplace else, or if you're already in a facility, you can put some licenses in a network and people can use them as when they need. Where does it work? What is the platform? Windows XP, Vista, Windows 7. So going back a little bit to the safety lifecycle, where is SafeGuard profile used in the safety lifecycle? Where does it fit? How do you use software in there? Where do you use it? Well, you use it at the beginning of the conceptual phase. Well, there's a lot of information that you're starting to build your database. You're starting to build all this information, and so it is heavily used at the beginning of the safety lifecycle. Hazard analysis information, layer protection analysis information, safety implemented functions, engineering and design, and then you start using it, right? And then it's the only modification. So it's a tool that is being used throughout the entire safety lifecycle. It allows you to manage your data at the end. It allows you to cope with your functional safety management. It's a tool that makes it easier for you. All the information is in there. So you can see this arrow going from dark color to a lighter color. That is with respect to input data in there. And so hopefully at the end you're not changing too much your system, but that depends on each facility, so you might do those changes. It allows you to comply with the management of functional safety, which is throughout the safety lifecycle. It allows you to plan ahead, create planning, assign tasks, talk to maintenance people, and planify some work to be done ahead of time. So all these normal things that you do during operations, that would be there. So SafeGuard profiler is used throughout the entire safety lifecycle, during the analysis phase, during the realization phase, construction, and then at the end during operations. And during operations, it can show you how much risk you are exposed to at any moment in time, and allows you to take decisions what you do. whether you keep running or you have to trip. And if the machine tripped you or the process tripped you automatically, so well, you would know exactly why, right? So SafeGuard profiling will allow you to right away, very simple, with the search and functions that are in there, to take you to those specific scenarios. And hopefully, if they already work with them, so they are there.